It was one of those mornings when the glass walls of Victor Lang's mansion reflected the early sun so brightly that the whole hillside seemed to glow. The house, more of a private museum than a home, stood high above the city overlooking everything below. Every detail was calculated, precise, controlled, just like the man who owned it. Victor Lang was a billionaire investor, known for his ruthless intelligence. At 53, he'd built his empire from nothing but sharp instinct and unshakable confidence. He didn't play golf or attend charity galas like most in his circle. His passion was chess. He'd built a private library dedicated to it, mahogany shelves lined with rare books, signed photographs of grandmasters, and a handmade oak chess table that once belonged to a Russian champion. Victor loved the game not just for its strategy, but for what it revealed about people. Chess shows the difference between those who think and those who only react, he often said. That morning, as sunlight poured through the tall windows, Victor sat in his study, setting up the board. Across the house, Maria Alvarez, his housekeeper of 3 years, worked quietly in the kitchen. She'd arrived early with her teenage son, Leo, who sat near the back door, sketching on an old notebook. Maria had asked permission to bring him just for the day. His school was closed for maintenance, and she couldn't afford to miss work. Victor had agreed distractedly, not looking up from his phone. He never paid much attention to the people who cleaned his marble floors or cooked his meals. They existed quietly, invisibly, the way he preferred. Now, as he sipped his coffee, he could hear faint movement down the hall, the clinking of dishes, the soft sweep of a broom, then unexpectedly a voice. "Young Clear. Sir, that's a Sicilian defense, right?" Victor looked up, frowning slightly. The boy stood near the doorway, backpack slung over one shoulder, a curious look in his eyes. "What did you say?" Victor asked. "The move you just played," Leo said. "Pawn to c5, that's the Sicilian defense, right?" Victor blinked, surprised. "You play chess?" "A little," the boy said, shrugging. Victor leaned back in his chair, a faint smirk forming. "A little? That's what people say before they embarrass themselves. Come here." Maria's voice called softly from the kitchen. "Leo, don't bother Mr. Lang. It's fine," Victor interrupted, still watching the boy. "Let's see how a little looks on the board." Leo hesitated, glancing toward his mother, then stepped closer. He was 15, quiet but confident in a way that came from something deeper than arrogance. His clothes were clean but old, his shoes scuffed from long walks. Victor gestured to the chair opposite him. "Sit. White or black?" Leo shrugged again. "Doesn't matter." Victor smiled. "Black, then." "You can learn from how I attack." Maria appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on her apron. "Mr. Lang, please, he's just a kid." "It's just a game," Victor said smoothly. "Let's give him a lesson." Leo sat down, his expression calm but unreadable. Victor made the first move, pawn to e4, his usual start. Leo responded instantly. Knight to c6, his movements quick, confident. Victor raised an eyebrow. "No hesitation?" Leo looked up briefly. "Thinking's for before the game." The comment made Victor's smirk falter. Bold words. Within minutes, the game began to unfold, and with each move, Victor felt something unusual. Pressure. The boy didn't play defensively as he'd expected. He played like someone who understood rhythm, balance, patience. His openings were sharp but disciplined, his responses immediate but precise. After 15 moves, Victor leaned forward, studying the board. His king's side was exposed, his queen awkwardly trapped. Maria, now standing near the door, frowned nervously. "Leo, maybe let Mr. Lang—" Victor lifted a hand. "Quiet, please." His tone was polite but edged. Leo's hand hovered above his knight. "You missed something, sir," he said softly. Victor looked up sharply. "Excuse me?" Leo pointed to the corner of the board. "Your bishop's pinned. You can't take my knight without losing your queen." Victor's eyes flicked over the pieces, realizing, too late, that the boy was right. A small crowd of staff had quietly gathered near the doorway, pretending to dust or organize books while watching. Leo made his next move, simple and devastating. Check. Victor stared at the board. The game that had started as a joke now felt like a trap closing around him. He could see no escape. Only damage control. He moved a pawn, one of the few defensive options. Left, but Leo's response came instantly. Checkmate in 18 moves, that the way. Room was silent except for the faint tick of the grandfather. Clock? Leo leaned back, almost apologetic. Good game, sir. Victor said nothing. His fingers tapped lightly against the table, his mind replaying the match. He wasn't just beaten. He was dismantled. Finally, he stood, straightening his jacket. Who taught you to play? My mom, Leo said simply. She used to play at the library on weekends. Victor turned his gaze toward Maria. You play chess? She nodded hesitantly. My father taught me when I was young. We used to play every Sunday. I just taught Leo to keep him busy when he was little. Victor looked back at the boy, still seated, calm and composed. And you kept playing? Leo nodded. Every day after school. Online, mostly. Victor walked slowly around the table, the sunlight glinting off his cufflinks. How often do you win? Leo met his eyes. Almost always. Something in Victor's expression shifted. Not anger, not humiliation, but intrigue. He had built his empire by spotting talent where others didn't look. And this kid, this quiet teenager with second-hand shoes and a steady gaze, was something different. Stand up, Victor said suddenly. Leo obeyed. Victor studied him for a long moment. You have potential. Raw but disciplined. You think several moves ahead. Leo didn't answer, unsure if it was a compliment or a test. Victor turned to Maria. How old is he? 15, sir. Does he compete? Maria shook her head. No, sir. We can't afford. Victor raised a hand. You can now, she blinked. Sir? I'll sponsor him, Victor said simply. Lessons, tournaments, travel. Full support. On one condition. Maria's voice trembled. Condition? He plays for me, Victor said. Represents the Lang Foundation. We'll build his name and mine. Maria hesitated, glancing at her son. Leo was silent, his eyes searching Victor's face for sincerity. Why? Leo asked quietly. You don't even know me. Victor smiled faintly. I know what I saw. You think like someone who wins. That's rare. Don't waste it. Maria's eyes filled with tears she tried to hide. Sir, we don't know what to say. Say yes, Victor said, already turning toward the window. And start packing your weekends. The first tournament's in 2 weeks. As they left the study, Leo looked back at the board one last time, the Black King still lying on its side. For the first time in years, Victor Lang felt something unusual, respect that wasn't born from power, but from loss. He poured himself another coffee, staring at the board, the taste of defeat mixing with the sharp, unexpected thrill of discovery. Somewhere deep inside, beneath the layers of pride and precision, something told him that this game had only just begun. 2 weeks later, the ballroom of the Downtown Chess Federation was filled with the low hum of murmured conversation and the soft clicking of chess clocks. Rows of polished wooden boards lined the tables, each surrounded by players of every age, their faces tense with focus. Cameras flashed, reporters whispered, and spectators leaned in quietly, watching the early rounds unfold. At the far end of the room, Leo Alvarez sat at a table far too grand for someone at his first tournament. His uniform, a crisp navy jacket with a small Lang Foundation emblem on the sleeve, looked slightly oversized on his lean frame. Across from him sat a boy about 2 years older, blonde, confident, the kind of player who'd been competing for years. Behind Leo, a small crowd had gathered, including Victor Lang, who stood silently with his arms folded. Maria, dressed neatly but nervously, stayed at the edge of the crowd, clutching her purse. She had never imagined she'd be in a room like this, surrounded by millionaires, parents and sponsors, whispering about the kid with the billionaire backer. Victor, however, seemed calm. His sharp eyes never left the board. The referee's voice broke through the murmurs. Round 3, begin. Leo opened with white, moving his pawn to e4, simple, clean, confident. His opponent responded with the Sicilian defense, the same opening Victor had used weeks before. A faint smile touched Leo's face. Maria recognized it. It was the same quiet smile he wore when he was sure of something. 10 minutes in, Leo had already built a positional advantage. His knight controlled the center. His queen and bishop coordinated perfectly. His opponent frowned, glancing nervously at the clock. The rhythm of Leo's play was unbroken, thoughtful but fast, like someone who saw patterns faster than his hands could move. Victor leaned toward one of the tournament organizers. He's calm, he said. Most kids his age panic under pressure. The man nodded. He's not reacting. He's dictating. By move 21, the game was over. Leo's opponent sat back, disbelief in his eyes. "You've got to be kidding me," he muttered, extending a reluctant hand. "Good game." Leo shook it politely. "Thank you." A smattering of applause broke out from the spectators. Maria exhaled for what felt like the first time in half an hour. Victor didn't clap. He simply watched, calculating, impressed. When the game ended, Leo returned quietly to where his mother waited. She hugged him tightly, whispering, "Mijo, that was incredible." He smiled softly. "Thanks, Mom, but it's not done yet. There's another round." Victor approached them, his polished shoes silent on the marble floor. "You handled yourself well," he said. "Your composure is your weapon." "Thank you, sir," Leo said. Victor's tone softened and slightly. "Confidence suits you. Just don't let it turn into pride." "Pride blinds," Maria smiled faintly. "He's not like that, Mr. Lang." Victor looked at her for a long moment, then nodded once. "Good. Keep it that way." As the day went on, Leo's streak continued. Game after game, he played with quiet precision, dismantling older, more experienced opponents. Word spread quickly, whispers of the prodigy circulating through the room. By the time the final round began, a small crowd had gathered specifically to watch him. His opponent this time was Elliot Rhodes, the reigning national junior champion, 17, confident, and visibly irritated to be facing a newcomer. As they sat across from each other, Elliot smirked. "Heard you're the Billionaire's kid." Leo looked up. "I'm not. My mom works for him." "Oh," Elliot said, leaning back. "That's even more interesting." The words were meant to sting, but Leo didn't flinch. "You should focus on the board," he said quietly. "I don't make easy mistakes." Victor watched from the sidelines, the faintest hint of a smile tugging at his mouth. The match lasted 40 minutes, long, intense, and quiet enough that you could hear the ticking of the clock echo off the ballroom walls. Elliot played aggressively, forcing exchanges, trying to trap Leo early. But every trap fell short. Move by move, Leo's position strengthened until it was clear. He wasn't surviving the game. He was controlling it. When the final checkmate came, it was elegant, surgical. The crowd broke into applause that filled the hall. Elliot leaned back, red-faced, muttering, "You're lucky." Leo smiled calmly. "Luck doesn't calculate moves." Victor stepped forward as photographers began to circle. He extended a hand toward Leo. "Congratulations, champion." Leo shook it, smiling but humble. "Thank you, sir." Maria joined them, eyes shining. "You did it, Leo. You really did it." Victor looked at her. "He didn't just win. He dominated. You should be proud." "I am," she said softly. "But he's just getting started." Victor turned to Leo, studying him. "Do you understand what this means?" Leo nodded. "That I can play." Victor's lips curved faintly. "That you can lead. Talent gets attention, but discipline wins respect. You've got both. Let's see how far it goes." Over the next few months, Victor made good on his promise. He hired a top chess coach, arranged private lessons, and sponsored Leo in national tournaments. The story of the Maid son turned chess prodigy spread quickly, from local news to national headlines. Maria stayed humble through it all, still working for Victor part-time, despite his insistence that she stop. "I don't want to forget who we are," she'd tell him. Victor respected that. But somewhere between tournaments and interviews, he began to see something changing. Not in Leo, but in himself. He had always used chess as a tool for ego and proof of his superiority. But watching Leo play reminded him of something purer. The boy didn't play to win fame or dominance. He played for the beauty of the game itself, for the quiet satisfaction of creating order from chaos, and for the first time in years, Victor Lang, the man who had everything, found himself learning from someone who had nothing to prove. He didn't realize it yet. But the game that had started as a humiliation would soon become his greatest lesson in humility. By midsummer, Leo Alvarez was no longer just the Maid's son. He was the quiet headline of every chess publication in the country. 15-year-old defeats state champion in flawless endgame. Lang Foundation's young prodigy stuns international masters. Every headline carried his name, and every photo showed that same calm, unreadable face leaning over a chessboard. But fame, even the kind born from talent, changes the air around people. Victor Lang watched it happen. The once empty seats at his private chess gallery were now filled with journalists, sponsors, and visiting players eager to test the boy. What had started as a private mentorship had become a phenomenon. Every day Leo arrived at the mansion for training, and every day more people were watching. Victor had expected pride. What he hadn't expected was reflection. He often found himself watching Leo between matches, how the boy remained grounded, unaffected by praise. Reporters asked him about money, about what it was like being adopted by a billionaire. Leo always gave the same quiet answer. "I'm grateful for Mr. Lang's help, but my mom still keeps me grounded." That one sentence always stuck with Victor. One afternoon, after a long training session, Victor and Leo sat in the study, a chessboard between them. The afternoon sun painted gold streaks across the polished floor. "Your calculation speed has improved," Victor said. "You're playing 3 moves ahead now." Leo smiled faintly. "You taught me to anticipate." Victor poured himself a cup of tea, his movements precise. "No, I taught you to control. You learned to anticipate on your own." Leo looked up from the board. "What's the difference?" Victor leaned back in his chair. "Control is about imposing your will. Anticipation is about understanding others." Leo considered that. "You used to play to control, didn't you?" Victor chuckled softly. "Still do most of the time." "You don't have to," Leo said quietly. "You're already winning." That simple statement hit harder than Victor expected. He didn't respond right away, just stared at the boy in front of him, the son of a maid, yet speaking with a confidence that men twice his age lacked. "You think I'm winning?" Victor asked finally. "You have money, power, and freedom," Leo said, "but you play every game like you're scared of losing something." Victor's teacup paused halfway to his lips. "Oh, you're observant," Leo shrugged lightly. "That's part of the game." There was a long silence between them, the kind that didn't feel uncomfortable, only true. Victor finally smiled faintly. "You might be the first person in years to tell me something honest without trying to flatter me. Maybe that's why you let me stay," Leo said simply. The remark lingered in the air, not disrespectful, not bold, just honest. That evening, Maria arrived to pick up her son. Victor walked them to the door, something he rarely did for anyone. Before they left, he stopped Leo. "You have a tournament next month in New York," he said. "It's an international open. You'll face grandmasters this time." Leo's expression didn't waver. "Good," Victor smiled. "I like your confidence." "It's not confidence," Leo said. "It's curiosity. I want to see how far I can think." That answer made Victor laugh softly, genuine amusement, not arrogance. "You really are one of a kind," Maria smiled proudly. "He's been like that since he was little. Always trying to outthink everyone. Even me." Victor looked at her for a moment, his voice lower, more personal. "You've raised him well." "You should know that." She nodded gratefully. "Thank you, sir. But I just kept him focused. The rest is him." After they left, Victor stood alone in the grand foyer, the sound of their footsteps fading down the marble corridor. For the first time in years, he felt something almost unfamiliar. Contentment. Not pride in his wealth, not satisfaction from power. Just the quiet joy of watching someone grow, but not everyone around him felt the same. 2 weeks before the New York tournament, one of Victor's longtime associates, Daniel Price, visited the mansion. Price had been his business partner for nearly a decade, sharp, competitive, and used to being Victor's equal. "I hear you've turned your Maid's kid into your new project," Daniel said as he poured himself a drink. Victor's eyes narrowed slightly. "He's talented. I'm giving him a platform," Daniel smirked. "Or maybe you're trying to fix something you can't admit. You've built empires, Victor. Why waste your time on a charity case?" Victor's tone chilled. "Because brilliance doesn't care where it's born." Daniel leaned back, unfazed. "You're sentimental." "That's new. I'm evolving," Victor said flatly. "You should try it sometime." The 2 men stared at each other, one smug, one unflinching. Finally, Daniel shrugged. "Suit yourself. But remember, investors don't like distractions." When he left, Victor stood by the window for a long time, watching the sun set behind the city skyline. Daniel's words lingered like static, not because he agreed, but because they reminded him of who he used to be, cold, detached, proud. He realized he was no longer that man. A week later, the day before their flight to New York, Leo stopped by the mansion for one last practice game. As they set up the board, Victor watched him with quiet admiration. "You've improved faster than anyone I've ever seen," he said. "Do you know why?" Leo tilted his head. "Because I learned from losing." Victor smiled faintly. "You only lost twice." "Exactly," Leo said. "And I remember both." Victor laughed softly, shaking his head. "Remind me not to underestimate you again." "You already learned that once," Leo said with a grin. Victor looked at him across the board, the boy who had humbled him, inspired him, and unknowingly redefined his understanding of success. He moved his pawn forward and said, "Let's see what you've got, champion." That night, as they finished their final game, one that ended in a draw, Victor realized something he hadn't in years. He wasn't the teacher anymore. He was the student. And for the first time in his life, that felt like winning. The morning of the New York International Open was alive with tension. The grand hall of the Metropolitan Chess Center gleamed under skylights, every table lined with precision-cut boards and digital clocks. Flags from dozens of countries hung from the ceiling, reporters whispered between flashes of camera shutters, and the air was heavy with the smell of coffee and focus. Leo Alvarez stood at the center of it all, wearing a simple gray blazer, with the small Lang Foundation crest stitched above his chest pocket. His mother, Maria, sat in the audience, wringing her hands quietly. Beside her sat Victor Lang, calm and immovable in a tailored navy suit, his sharp eyes fixed on the boy he'd once underestimated. The announcer's voice carried through the room. Round 1, Board 12, Leo Alvarez representing the Lang Foundation versus Grandmaster Sergei Ivanov. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Ivanov was a seasoned Russian master, known for dismantling prodigies who came in overconfident. He was older, formidable, and unapologetically smug. As Leo approached the board, Ivanov looked up, offering a faint smirk. "You're the Billionaire's charity case, yes?" Leo's face didn't change. "I'm the one playing you," the room chuckled softly. Ivanov's grin faltered. The arbiter started the clock. Leo opened with his favorite move, pawn to e4. Ivanov countered aggressively, launching into a sharp variation of the Sicilian defense. The match began like a storm. Fast, precise, pieces clattering softly in a rhythm only the skilled could follow. Victor watched in silence, his hands clasped. Every time Leo leaned in, every time he paused before a move, Victor could see it. The same calm focus that had once humiliated him in his own home. Only now it was sharper, stronger. After 20 moves, Ivanov's confident smirk had vanished. His position was collapsing under the weight of Leo's preparation. Each piece moved with purpose. Every trade left him weaker. The crowd leaned forward as Leo pressed the clock. "Check," he said quietly. Ivanov studied the board for nearly a minute before exhaling, defeated. "Impressive," he admitted. "You play like you've lived twice." Leo shook his hand. "Maybe I just listen more than most." The applause was quiet at first, then grew into a ripple of cheers. Reporters began snapping photos, whispering about the young phenomenon and Lang's secret weapon. By the final round that evening, Leo was undefeated. His opponent, a top-seeded American grandmaster, played aggressively but impatiently. Leo met every attack with measured calm. His movements were fluid, his eyes unwavering, and then the final checkmate. The crowd erupted. Cameras flashed. Maria cried softly into her hands. Victor didn't clap. He just sat there, still as stone, his chest rising and falling slowly. Leo stood, extending his hand to his opponent. "Good game," he said, and the man shook it, humbled. The tournament hall buzzed with noise, but within the small circle of the Lang Foundation team, there was only quiet awe. Reporters swarmed the area, asking for interviews, quotes, photos. Leo obliged politely but briefly. When one journalist asked him, "How does it feel to make your sponsor proud?" Leo paused, then smiled slightly. "I think I made my mom proud," he said. Maria's eyes filled again, this time with quiet joy. Victor laughed softly, almost under his breath. The cameras caught it, a rare, genuine smile that wasn't for business or optics. Later that night, back at the hotel, the suite was filled with trophies, flowers, and congratulatory messages. Victor stood by the window, looking out over the glittering skyline while Maria packed Leo's things. "You've done something remarkable," Victor said without turning. "And not just for him, for me." Maria looked up. "You gave him a chance." That's more than most would have done. Victor shook his head slowly. He earned it. I just happened to see it. There was a pause, a quiet understanding between two people from very different worlds who somehow met in the same moment of truth. He changed you, didn't he? Maria asked softly. Victor turned, meeting her eyes. Completely, she smiled gently. Then it was worth it. The next morning, they returned home to find a small crowd waiting outside the Lang estate. Photographers, local reporters, and neighbors eager to glimpse the chess prodigy. Leo waved shyly before slipping inside. Victor followed him into the study, the same room where their story had begun. The chessboard was still there, perfectly arranged as always. Leo ran his fingers along the pieces, thoughtful. It's strange, he said. This all started because you wanted to teach me a lesson. Victor smiled faintly. Turns out you were the one teaching. Leo looked up, his tone sincere. You could have fired us that day. You didn't. Why? Victor thought for a moment, then said quietly, because for the first time in a long time I saw something money couldn't buy. Humility. You earned my respect in a way no one ever has, Leo smiled. Then I guess we're even. Victor chuckled softly. Not even close. You've still got a lifetime of moves ahead of you. The boy picked up a pawn, rolling it between his fingers. Then I'll keep playing. Victor nodded. Good. But remember, the game isn't just on the board. It's in how you treat people, how you lead, how you lose with grace and win with humility. That's the real strategy. Leo looked at him thoughtfully, then set the pawn down. I'll remember. The two of them sat down one last time, arranging the pieces, the soft morning light washing over the table. Outside, the world was still talking. Headlines, photos, interviews. But inside that quiet room there was no noise, no power, no class difference, just two players, teacher and student, billionaire and Maid's son, sharing the only thing that had ever made them equals, the beauty of the game.